But like again, these are grown men. To them, they don't want to leave anything on the table because, to them that's their inheritance. That's what these people have been stealing since day one, and we all know we're all in a struggle here, just trying to survive. So their mindset is, I'm not leaving that out there without recouping.
And you're talking about the birth certificate and the social security number and all of that.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah, and cases that have been bonded and everything under the sun that these people have put upon us. They just don't want to cut that stuff loose because they feel they have, which I get because I've been put through that system too. They don't want to give that up because they want that back at the end of the day, which is not easy to get back either. But there's a lot of Moors that are highly intelligent and have figured this thing out, which I know a lot of them, and have been able to get their hands on a lot of that credit that was taken from them. They've been able to use the IRS to get themselves out of jail and recoup that money from those bonds that were opened upon their cases and their tickets and so on. So I can relate.
They're actually, go ahead.
I can relate. I told them that the system is going to change. It'll be a better system. But again, I'm pretty sure you get the stubbornness when we've been put through so much garbage. And I can speak because I had my own company, and out of nowhere, every time I was traveling, I was getting pulled over and ticket after ticket, if not getting arrested. So I can relate. I'm not going to say that I don't. I yield.
So what it sounds like, right, Justice Yezreel, you know exactly where I'm going. They're holding on to something and looking in the wrong direction in terms of the system. They're holding on to debt instruments, hoping to cash in on them in a debt system that can only give them more debt as a reward in the way of Federal Reserve debt notes. And I can tell you with 100% accuracy, without ever having laid eyes on them, that they're struggling. That none of them are living in domiciles that are just huge and gigantic and, having all conveyances and everything, just, they're not living in the lap of luxury. I know that for a fact, based on what you just said about what they're doing and what they're holding on to and saying that they don't want to leave that estate out. Okay. They need to keep those things, but those things will be brought to their nation in order for them to reap any benefit whatsoever. And so we're going to talk about how that's going to work. I'm glad you brought that up, because that brings us right on into government services that we are moving now. Now, we've already been providing government services on the land, but that's about to go on high, so that they can take those instruments and do a reversion of the state on them and bring them to their nation and get what they need that way, instead of trying to get something that has never worked for any of them. It hasn't even worked for the hybrids. I mean, I know that when we look at the hybrids, some people say, oh, they got all this and they got all that. They're struggling and they're scared. They're struggling and they're scared because they see that debt system is a goner. It's already wrapped up and finished. So you know, let's go ahead into why we even are doing the work that we're doing, all of us, all Moors. We hired the Service Corporation back in the day before they went full-scale court and corporate. We hired them to do government services on our land. So we want to take a look at government services because we are I would say slowly but surely, but that's not even true. It's happening very quickly. We're replacing any government services that they were doing. Okay, we're replacing them. And everything that we've done thus far, you'll see how it ties into all of that right now. So let's take a look at government services. First, let me properly open the meeting. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Article 3, Moorish American, Moroccan, consular court action. I am sovereign living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminucio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are the original indigenous sovereign, ancient Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance and our energy and our credit are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous natural divine, de jure Moorish National Republic federal government, the Moorish American Consulate, and the Moorish American Consular Court. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time. Nunc pro tunc. So, let's move down to sovereign government services. The list of sovereign government services to be made available forthcoming by companies listed on the Moroccan American Exchange by way of our Moorish American Consular and United States Court is listed below. We prefer gold-backed Moorish sovereign dollarium, but we will accept all lawful money, coinage, and gold items. We do not accept Federal Reserve debt notes. All goods, services, and exchanges are without the United States Corporation Company. Now, the list that I'm about to read, we all must look at the list, not looking at it as in solely what services can I get from this. We're looking at the list to bring to the table our own gifts and talents and skills and abilities and knowledge and science and all of that to see what we can contribute to this in order to manifest it even further than we already have. So when we look at the list of government services, look at it for where you can fit in and do the work. Okay? Yes, we will be using our own services, but we're going to be looking for all hands on deck so that as we continue to grow our government here on our land, that we do so in a manner that is without the United States Corporation Company. So they're completely out of the way with what we're doing. Everything that we're doing it. It starts with us and it stays with us. And that is where, you know, the gold-backed Moorish sovereign dollarium comes in at, which is our preferred method of exchange. However, we accept, and when I say we, I'm talking about you all too. You all have to start getting ready to do a repository where you're going to be accepting either more sovereign dollarium or gold or whatever for the services that you provide on this list that we're about to look at. Because you all have to do this. We all have to do it in all of our territories. That's what consulate and government is. So when you look at the list, look at it and say, okay, I can do this right here. So I'll get ready and get set up so I can just provide those services, okay? So that I can provide those services, okay? So let's look at government services. And here's the list. Hopefully you can see the list. Can you see the list on the screen? Islam. Government services include nationality and citizenship services, issuing of nationality identification cards for all nationalities and nations and governments to include Moors, and we know that this list that we're reading off here is nothing but more Moors, okay? They go by different names in terms of their nation, but they're still Moors. So we're talking the Hebrew Israelites. They need to proclaim that they are a sovereign nation, okay? The Gullah Geechee people, they need to proclaim that they're a sovereign nation without capitalism and without the United States and without the Federal Reserve Debt Notes, because I see capitalism has taken over there as well, and they need to free themselves from that. Moabites, Canaanites, Hittites, Phoenicians, Olmecs, which is our brothers and sisters who are considered quote unquote Mexican. Cherokees, Choctaw, Sioux, Chickasaw, Paleo, and all others. So we're going to be providing government services where nationality and citizenship services are concerned for all others. And when I say all others, I mean there's no one breathing on this earth that we will not be providing services for. Number 2, banking services to include issuing of gold-backed lawful currency, to include Moorish sovereign dollarium, gold-backed United States dollars. We will be a gold repository and depository services. We will do gold revaluation services, domicile land and conveyance possession, monetization of securities and exchange instruments. So when we talk about securities and exchange instruments, we're talking about liens. We're talking about those instruments that you mentioned earlier, nobility, when you talked about those Moors, those that want to come in and join us with what we're doing, but they don't want to leave a perceived estate out there. They do have an estate. It needs to be properly manifested on paper. It needs to be competently put forth. And we can provide assistance with that, okay? So securities and exchange, all of the liens that have been done, when they fit a particular format, we'll be able to monetize them with gold-backed money, not Federal Reserve Debt Notes, because we don't accept them, we don't give them out, we don't exchange them, we don't use them, period, okay? Number 3, sovereign notary sealing of titles, land patents, and deeds. And when we say titles, land patents, and deeds, we're talking about sovereign titles, sovereign land patent, and sovereign deeds, because corporate land patents and corporate deeds are not valid. We talked about recently how you can look in the land patent system, the Bureau of Land Management. You can look in their system, put in your clan name or clan appellation. For example, on my sovereign born, the day that I was born, and this is the same for all of us, so I'm using this as an example. On the day that we crossed the Stargate, our sovereign mother spoke a sovereign born appellation, and for me it would be Pauline Denise Ritchie. Well, I can look in the Bureau of Land Management records and look for land patents under the clan name of Ritchie and find all lands all over the place that is in the name of the Ritchie. However, we must properly then bring that land into our sovereign jurisdiction by putting it in red in all lowercase letters and recreating, and it's not even recreating, it's creating the land patent according to our format on our government letterhead. And surprisingly, the land patents that you see in the Bureau of Land Management records, they're on 8.5 by 14 paper. They use the old ancient style writing that we use on our letterhead. So our land patents are going to look almost exactly like the older land patents. Okay, but we must put them in red and all lowercase letters. So we'll, as a part of government services, we'll be helping the heirs with the conversion of that. Number 4, recording of titles, land patents and deeds. Okay, I put that. Yeah, yes. So notary sealing of them, and then also proper recording of them. We will also be doing clerk for court services. Okay, so whenever you're talking about property, there's always going to be a need for clerk for court services. And again, we do this sovereignly, allodially, because all of these are government services that needed to be brought under our authority. Number 6, post office services to include sovereign stamping and universal postal union apostille services, shipping of parcels and mail, and sovereign money orders, including United States Treasury checks. Number 7, trademarking, patenting, and invention protection and sovereign incorporation of commerce. Number 8, erudition certification courses to include competent judge, justice, and consul courses, constitutional courses, police, fire, and conveyance inspection, domicile and commercial structure inspection courses. All of that is starting to come together right now. We already have more. Everyone on this call can contribute to, in terms of your knowledge and your information that you have, can contribute to at least one of these. And number 9, lawful documentation for production, transport, export, and import of all commercial goods and services for exchange earthwide. And this document is a statement of work. Those who are familiar with government contracting know that when, and I'll say the government, and when I say the government, I'm talking about us, okay? But when the corporation, now I'm talking about them, the corporation, when they contracted for government services, there is a process that always starts, first it starts with a request for services or a purchase request. RFQ, I believe, is if I remember correctly. I'll have to look back at my contracting books because when I was asleep, I worked in contracting. I was a contracting officer for the corporation. But we're now bringing all of that back under our auspices and under our authority. And you put out a statement of work once you enter into the contract, or when you're bidding for the contract, you send a statement of work. And the statement of work addresses everything that's on the request for proposal, the RFP or the RFQ, request for quote, request for proposal, etc. And you address that in your statement of work. So that is what this is. We already know we're putting out the proposal and we're putting out the request for work, we're putting out the statement of work and all of that because we know what our nation needs. So in looking at this list is not by any means complete because there's other things that we're adding to this list as well, to include things like rehabilitation services. There are some Moors who have issues with, baggage that's coming in from colonialism that have to do with substance abuse and all of those things. We have to deal with that too. All of that is us because it's still our nation. So those things are part and parcel of our nation. We're going to deal with them because those belong in our jurisdiction too, so that Moors don't have to keep going in and out of the fake system. They can stay right in sovereign jurisdiction so that they don't have to face anything that is not befitting their nobility as they go through the process of healing. So healing services all together, the whole hospital, medical, doulas, birth of the babies, proper recording of the vital statistics, etc. All of that is also a part of this, okay? So I'll go ahead and put that on here. Okay. Okay. So as we're putting out this statement of work onto the public record here today, because that's what, yes, Justice Theodore, yes, this is where the General Services Administration comes in it, or ministry, General Services Ministry, or the Government Services Ministry comes in at. The corporates call it GSA, General Services Administration, and at one point it had gone bankrupt and went to being called Government Services Administration, and nobody really even noticed the difference because they kept calling it GSA. So these are government services that we will be doing as we move forward, okay? And this is this statement of work. We all have been talking about governing the vast estate, and we haven't even gotten into things like number 12, natural resources, the governing of natural resources. And then there's going to be many other things that come into play. And we put transportation up there earlier. So, but we have to start.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to ask, how long before they stop poisoning our water and our skies?
So we want to stay on topic. Thank you for that. We want to stay on topic. But as far as poisoning water and skies, we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere. We've been here since time immemorial. There's no poisoning that they can do that's going to get rid of us. So any poisoning, quote unquote poisoning that may have been done didn't work, because we're still sitting here just as healthy as we can be. Now, when you talk about poisoning, we first have to bring that all the way back home and say this. There are some poisons we can avoid in the food, but some of us still eat those foods. A lot of the poisoning will stop because it starts with us and what we decide to consume. So if we start there first, because see, people will always say, if they don't care about themselves, if they're willing to just keep eating all types of garbage, then we can poison the water and the air, and it'll just be adding to what they have already done to themselves. And they will always say, if they don't care, we don't care. Well, we got to care about that first, because see, we can keep looking. We can look out there and blame everybody else, but at the end of the day, we got to bring that all the way back home and say, what decisions are we making from 1 minute to the next throughout our day that's making our lives better? We can keep looking out there if we want to look out there, because we're going to have to look out there at some point anyway. But everything, poisoning as well as good health, starts with us. So let's keep that in mind and make that a priority of making good decisions throughout the day. When will they stop? They'll stop when we say stop doing that. That's when they'll stop, because they do as commanded. So government services, this is where we're going with everything that we're doing. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the resources are beginning to manifest, whereby we can do these things. We have to know, we have to be 10 steps ahead of everything. So some have been wanting the resources to manifest. Well, we have to think way ahead. As you know, we have been manifesting the precepts that will cause the resources to appear. We started that with a lien on the service corporation, and we're going to do another one on them just really, really shortly, very shortly, because we want to do one that's a little bit more detailed with them. And that was in 2018, and then in 2019 we did a couple of other things. So once we leaned them, then we said, okay, the gold standard is now activated, because the gold standard never went anywhere. They don't have the authority to move a gold standard and shut down the gold standard and all of that. What they do on paper is their business because it has no effect when we speak. So what happened in 1971 did not happen to us. It happened to the corpses, not us. So when they talk about Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, that didn't happen to us. That's not even really our money, because it's not money. It's fake fiat. So now in 2018 or 2019, we said, okay, the gold standard. And then a month after that, we said, okay, we're going to put 666 trillion in gold on the public record so that everyone knows that we know exactly who we are and we know that everything belongs to us. And then there were some things that needed to take place after that in order for the manifestation of the vast estate and the resources that we need to come to fruition. We had to get on the same page. All of us had to get on the same page, and many of us are. The ones that are awake. We're on the same page. How do I know we're on the same page? Don't let anybody curse our nation and say, we're just not we're not unified. Yes, we are. If we weren't unified, we wouldn't even be here, and we wouldn't see the changes that we've seen. And every last one of those who say, we're just not unified, we're just not unified, they're not doing enough to unify. I'm going to put that out there because it's the truth. If you're looking around, whatever it is that you see, if you complain about it, that means you're not doing enough to fix it. Because that's what you see. You've been shown that. So instead of complaining about it, fix it so that your eyes can see the unity. Others who are working toward unity see the unity. There are many more who know that we are unified. They're looking at the changes, and they're looking at when something happens, how we all come together and start talking about how we can fix it. They see the unity because they're working right in alignment with it and doing everything they can to push unity forth in our nation. So in doing all of the things that are leading up to the manifestation of the resources, because that was the original thing that we're talking about here. Once we put the 666 trillion on the public record as a nation together, how do I know that It wasn't just me doing that by myself, because we've heard from those quote unquote banks and those quote unquote financial places and all of that, that many, many, many more took that and used it to do whatever they were attempting to do, whatever they set out to do. Some Moors were able to secure things for themselves. Even if it was just temporarily, they were able to secure things for themselves. But then we all have to keep rising, and that is what's causing the manifestation of the resources. So we have to have a plan and a strategy already in place before the ancestors were going to just let resources manifest like that. We can't just say, oh, we want 100 million each. We have to have a plan for all of that, and then we have to actually be living the plan while we're looking for that to manifest. So this document is another manifestation of our resources, knowing that we have to do it because we are the resource, we are the banks, we are all of that. We're the natural resources, we're the rare earth minerals, we're all of that. We're the healing for our nation and everything. We're the government, we're the law. So this document is also another presentment in alignment with both the dollarium, the real estate piece that we've been working on together as a nation, and also the Moroccan American exchange. So all of this is coming together. It's a grand plan that's coming together even as we continue to work this plan and this strategy. Okay, we have to do it. There's no other way for us to move forward on the earth without a strategy and a plan that is forward thinking in terms of how to govern the resources. And when I say forward thinking, there are some who can't see this yet because they're trying to get past a speeding ticket. And that's okay. We want to make it so that when the Moors come out of the POW camp, or when as their needs arise, that we can begin to assist and address those needs. But it had to be completely outside of the corporate system and without Federal Reserve debt notes and without the United States Corporation Company. It had to be. So that's what we're doing here. Are there any questions about government services? And you can star 6 if you have a question. Star 6 will unmute you. Now, there are some developments that have happened just in the last 24 hours that made this document even manifest. And it's a development definitely in our favor, something we've been working on for a few months now has manifested. So we have yet another demonstration also that we're going to do this week, and we won't put the manifest. We won't discuss what that is right now because we.
Please tell everybody about Valerie Barthe being in jail.
She's not in jail. Be quiet. So we want to ensure that that we move forward with our eyes wide open on what we have to do. Okay. So
why is Valerie in jail?
So now, what we want to do from this point, if there are no questions about government services, we're going to continue manifesting these government services. And remember, we're doing this already, but we have to kind of step it up a few more notches. Okay. Now, that's I wanted to introduce that so that we could all see where we're going from here. Okay. and where that ties in with everything. Those birth certificates and social security numbers and all of those corporate documents, they are going to be needed, but only so that we can do a reversion of the estate and create the real one. So in order to access the benefit of the trust, we want to be able to know who everyone is so that we can then do the reversion of the estate and get everyone set up the way that they need to be. And you all are already setting yourselves up. It's not even anything that we need to do in terms of setting it. You already have trust proclamations on the public record. You have terminations of corporate contracts on the public record. You have your nationality on the public records. You've got liens. You've got court actions. That's what's necessary to proclaim the vast estate. And then we get to work. So we see that the whole job market and everything that has to do with the job market is dried up for the corporate piece. So now it's up to us to employ ourselves and everyone that we love. And everyone, really. Everyone that's on our vast estate. They're going to need jobs and they're going to need to work. And they're going to need to be able to feed their families and their clans, etc. And this is the way forward with all of that. Because this is enough right here to make our land be whatever we want it to be. So many of us are already working in these areas or have worked in them in the past. Okay? So this is not going to be anything new that we can't do. We can all do it. In the chat, Justice Malik, you're absolutely correct. He put in the chat, we need a communications network, a moorishe app. We are looking for someone who can develop an app from scratch, because the origin of the app needs to start with us. We know that there are some platforms out there where you can sign on and it's an open source platform, and you know, you put yourself onto their platform and you develop an app based on their platform. We know about that. That's not necessarily what we're looking for. We're looking for a start to finish app. Something that starts with us and we're in complete control of the back doors and everything that has to do with it. So we are looking for that. And it will manifest. Farming and agriculture, Empress Kenya, yes. That's all a part of this also. Because, again, the Puget Sound Agriculture Company is one of the many agriculture companies on the Moroccan American Exchange. So that's a part of this also. In order for us to continue, like, cultivating our company, we're going to need to have these services on board as we continue growing our company. And that's so that we can bring on employees from other nations if necessary, and that everyone is properly documented, etc. Okay? Yes, Justice Empress Shatali. She says, as we take over resources, the poisoning will stop because we will be governing. Exactly. That's where we're going with all of this. So that's the answer to the question that the noble asked earlier about the poisoning of the skies and the poisoning of the water. They would need access to the skies to poison it, wouldn't they? They would need access to airplanes and gas and all of that. Well, that's our stuff. That's our stuff. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And then to poison some water, you got to have access to some water to poison, and then you got to find some poison to put in it. That's our stuff. All of that's ours. Because as you know, most poison, when given in the right doses, can either be a cure or it can urge the body to create antibodies, which would be a cure. So there's nothing in our nation that we cannot use. Nothing in our nation we can't use. Okay? Yes, Justice Theodore, many hats for every more. We're going to all have to come out of our comfort zone and do more than one thing. Everything on this list right here, I'm looking at it, and to some degree, just since I've been awake, I've done almost everything on this list to some degree. Some to a greater degree than others. And we will all have to wear many hats and turbans as we do this. I had an empress that I was speaking with the other day, and she was saying, understandably, overstandably rather, she was saying, well, you know, I can do, you know, I have a lot of skills, which she does. She's just extremely, extremely highly intelligent and intuitive. But she said, I don't, you know, I see you with your turban on, and I probably won't be wearing no turban or anything like that, you know, but I want to know about what you're doing, you know. And I thought about that overnight, and I thought, see, in a minute, turbans and fezzes are going to be status symbols. Anybody wearing a turban and fez, they're going to be like, I know they got a lot of money. Just watch as we continue to move forward. And again, that's not why we wear them. We wear them because they are signs, sigils, and symbols, and they hold meaning for us. But I know when our prophet said that you're going to look out in the streets and the Moors, there's going to be turbans and fezzes everywhere. You know, Moors are going to have their turbans and fezzes on. It'll be because of that, because at one point they were a status symbol. That when you saw turbans and fezzes, you just knew that the law had stepped into the place, and they're the government, and they're also the heirs to everything. So that's coming to with regard to the hat. I'm trying to Empress Kenya said she created a sovereign security number template. So, and I'd love to take a look at that when we get a moment. See, Empress Kenya, you're already doing, that's vital statistics right there. That's vital statistics. Already doing it. And then Empress Kenya created the dollarium as well. So she's already doing the banking piece. She has her currency controller affidavit. She has her, you know, her nationality and all of that on the record. So she's uncovered about 3 or 4 of these government services already. The government services need to be done for you first, more. So I had to make sure that I was doing these things first for me. My nationality has to be on the public record. I need to look into banking services and see how do we move forward in removing the corporate covering off the banking system, and then saying, okay, banking system, you're subject to the Moors. So those are things that we had to, how do we record our documents and keep them out of the corporate system? We had to work through and walk through all of that. So government services consists of everything that we've already been doing. We just have to do it, help other Moors that are coming to do it as well. Okay. Yes, the national headdress, the turbans and fezzes, Justice Theodore. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments about government services? And there will be, I will say this, there will be a Moorish sovereign dollarium amount attached to each one of those services. Now again, Moorish sovereign dollarium, you get that by email. So you can print off the dollarium that you need to get your services done. But that exchange for these services must take place. That's the reset. The Moors are the ones, and the more I think about that we can print as much money as we need, the more I know that what we're doing is the right thing. Because, see, again, on our vast estate, we're not buying anything. We're just keeping count of everything. So any of these services that the Moors need, if they say, well, nationality, or well, let's go with banking services and domicile possession, and they'll say, well, the fee for that is, you know, 1,000 quote unquote dollars, and then you'd be like, okay, what's your email address? Let me send you some more sovereign dollarium so you can print them off and take them into the bank and use them. There's a, you know, some may not see the value in that, but the best way to show that you're no longer a part of the capitalism system is to use a system that's not in the capitalism system. That is how allegiance is established, even at law. So when the corporates kept saying manufactured consent, they keep consenting, etc., we can prove that we're not a U.S. citizen by showing them that I just made a purchase in gold-backed Moorish sovereign dollarium just yesterday. Whoever, listen, the jurisdiction is the money. That's how they were able to you know, infiltrate and corrupt some really good demonstrations that were done out there. I've seen some Moors do some brilliant demonstrations, but then they would take, you know, however many Federal Reserve debt notes and pay a quote unquote county recorder to record their brilliant, beautiful demonstration on the public record. And when they paid that, it corrupted the demonstration. And then they would say, oh, the paperwork didn't work. I did all this study and it didn't work. Well, no, you could publish without exchanging fiat. And now, with our government services, we'll be publishing, and then when you publish, you pay in dollarium. And it's not paying, again, it's just the exchange. You do the exchange in dollarium, and then that keeps the corruption out of what we do. Yes. Now, see, Justice Theodore, you own to something, because that's actually a part of where we're going next. Like Chinatown, he says, they have their own money. Yes, they do. And how did they do that? By providing their own government services. Justice Malik says, how should Moors approach the bank with our dollarium? Don't approach them until you know the answer to that question. We'll be doing a demonstration this week on that, and we'll be sharing the demonstration with you. But we're not going to say anything just yet any more than what we've been saying. Okay, we have to remain allodial and sovereign. Okay, how should Moors approach the bank with our dollarium? We're going to talk about that, because we have to stay in our own sovereign jurisdiction, and banking is actually going to be one of our government services that we do, using the infrastructure that's on our land, by the way. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we're doing is doing what's been being done on our land. It will just be under our authority and our control. Okay. So if anyone has any questions or comments, please *6. I need to step away for just 2 seconds, and I'll be right back, because I want to get a document. If you have anything that you want to say, I can hear. I'm just stepping away for just a moment. Okay. So now let me bring up the next topic that we were going to talk about, which is there is some information that through the years was hidden, supposedly hidden from us. And one of those bits of information I do want to bring forth at this time. So you know how we have the Holy Quran, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science that was written by our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Little did we know the Ku Klux Klan, who are servants to the Moors, have a book that they call the Koran. So it's Koran with an L in it. Okay. And it's the Koran of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, we have been programmed to think that the Klan is enemies of us. But they're not enemies of the Moors. They are enemies of the blacks, though. People who think they're black. Okay. They are actually, the Klan is actually servants to the Moors. And we're going to bring out just a couple of things that in their rituals and the things that they say and do, just some things that we wanted to bring forth that was previously hidden from us. So I wanted to bring this book forth, and I'm going to put the link to this book in the chat so that you can look it up if you want to look at it too. Because if you remember correctly, our prophet Noble Drew Ali had, he was invited into the Klan lodges and things like that because he knew who he was. And they knew who he was, and they honored the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And those are some things that we heard from Moors throughout the years. So again, we weren't there, we can't prove it, but that's what we've heard from those who claim to be in the 8 chambers of the Moors. And it's not a coincidence that the name of the book is the Koran. And as you know, all of the subjects on our land at some point have a fez somewhere, the males, and even the females too, have a fez that they wear in secret. So I wanted to point a few things out. Again, the Klan was founded in 1866 by ex-Confederate soldiers and Southerners who were opposed to Reconstruction after the Civil War. Well, what do we know about Reconstruction? Reconstruction and Renaissance and any of that has everything to do with rewriting the story. That's what Reconstruction really is. It's rewriting the story. And not only is it rewriting the story, but it's burying or hiding in plain sight the truth. That's what Reconstruction is and was, and that's just what it is. So we hear these quote-unquote hero stories about, certain ones throughout history and all the good, supposed good that they did. The stories that they told us about George Washington is so different from what we learned in the education camps that it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, what they were really doing is they were in service to the Moors too. And all they did was go around and capitalize everything. That's all they were doing, was going around capitalizing the resources of the Moors so that they could go ahead and do the hypothecation and then start administering the estate. Administering means do not minister the estate to the blacks, to the Moors in their sleep. And then when the Moors wake up, you won't have a choice but to move aside, because the Moors are going to be competent and peaceful. And that's how you will know that your Lord, your Savior, has returned, is because the Moors will be competent and they'll be peaceful. So Reconstruction, the Klan was opposed to the changing of the story. They know who their God is. They know who their Creator is. And they did not want the other hybrids, the corporate hybrids, to do what they saw the corporate hybrids about to do. So they considered the corporate hybrids frauds. Okay. So let's just looking through this manual here, you're going to see a few mentions of what they call the invisible empire. Well, who do you think the invisible empire and its subjects and servants are? It's the sleepy Moors. That was the invisible empire, the sleepy Moors. And that's why we were invisible, because we couldn't even see ourselves in propria persona juris while we were asleep. We didn't know. But there is also our ancestral hand. Our ancestral hand, the long arm of the law, okay, our ancestral hand that never gave up any leadership or anything like that. Our ancestors are still governing. They're still ruling. They never have stopped. And that is what gives us our authority to do what we're doing today, is that our ancestors said, okay, we're going to put our heirs through some tests to sharpen their first eye, their pineal gland. We're going to put them through some tests to see how they respond. And when they respond to those tests a certain way, they're going to get the results that they are looking for, so that they can join us in the governing of the vast estate. Because we're just joining our ancestors. So this one is from the realm of Mississippi. Can you imagine? Now think about all the stuff we know. We know about the different dimensions and the different jurisdictions. They call Mississippi a realm. They call the different quote unquote 50 states, those are realms in the spirit world, in the spirit realm. And each one has different energies because they serve a different purpose in the awakening of the Moors. That's why they call them realms. And then look now, and this I didn't see until I started looking at this book, but they use a form of, not only do they have their own realm that they operate in, but they also have their own language that they operate in that is outside of corporate English, so to speak, outside of. Look how they spell things. As you go through this book, they all write this way. So let me say this about their spelling. First of all, they use Latin just like we do in our spells that we cast. And that's how come our spells are so powerful. They know that corporate English is fictitious grammar, so they don't use it in their rituals, their secret adept chambers and their secret chambers and all of that. They don't use corporate English spelling. They don't cast their spells in corporate English. So can you imagine what they felt and talked about among each other when they saw us writing in ancient English? some stuff that they've been, all we did was manifest our truth, and it's right in alignment with what the quote-unquote adepts have been doing all along. That's how they know that we're the real heirs and that we're hearing from our ancestors, all of us, not just one of us, all of us. They've been writing in using different languages and different money and all of that the whole time. These guys right here, you're never going to see dollar signs on their stuff. They don't even use Federal Reserve debt notes in their rituals. They use something called and I wrote it down, KLEC token. They use KLEC tokens to do things. Because, see, in order for them to hold any secrets outside of the United States Corporation Company, they had to use a different form of currency, and they had to use a different language. And that is actually, when you look at the definition of a nation, that's actually what a nation must have in order to call themselves a nation and a government. Our own language, the way we cast our spells has to be different, and the money system, the system of exchange must be different. So let's look a little further. See how they spell the word character? It's jurisdiction. Yes, Justice Yezreel. Listen, when our ancestors told us to start writing in ancient English, I knew people were going to say, that's crazy. You all spell like first graders. And I knew we were going to hear that. But we had to do what the ancestors told us to do from within, because they speak from within us. And I knew that down the line, the ancestors would show us where we had to do that in order to keep going. The ancestors give us the keys to the next level every time we get something new like that. So now I want to show you something in here. Let's look at this first sentence right here. We know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of society but the people themselves. That's in alignment with the Constitution, isn't it? As we go through this document, you're going to see things that align with the Constitution, and not just the Constitution, but the Holy Quran, that divinely prepared by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So I'm going to skip over some things. You have the link to it here. And go to just a few things that I noticed in skimming through this document. Okay. For example, here, all this time, we have been taking an oath every time we go to those POW camps. We were taking an oath the same way that they were. That's why we were never supposed to be in those inferior schools. On page 9 here, and it would be page 7 according to the book, right here at the bottom, there's in their rituals, they sing the quote-unquote national anthem. There it is. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. This right here, see, they knew that they were in trouble when the athletes would no longer stand for this anthem right here. The corporates knew, because the corporates even hypothecated that. The national anthem was supposed to be for subjects of the Moors to sing, not corporate who did the same thing with that they did with the Constitution. They hypothecated it and then began to use it against the sovereign heirs. Okay. Now, another something that I want to point out to you here on this page. Right here. Let's see. Now, this right here, this is a prayer that they do. And
Islam?
If you, yes, Islam, Empress.
Thank you. Is there any way you can enlarge that?
Yes, I can. Thank you for that. Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you. Islam.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, Empress. I didn't mean for it to be that small because you need to see this. So here on page 8, I'm just going to read a couple of these sentences that they pray in all of their meetings. Oh God, our heavenly guide, as finite creatures of time and as dependent creatures of thine, we acknowledge thee as our sovereign Lord. Let's just stop right there. Now, Moors, we know that we live forever. We're infinite, aren't we? Now tell me they don't know that they don't live forever. They're saying it right there. They're praying to the Moors. When they talk about a sovereign Lord, that's the Moors. They know that. Now, when they talk about being a finite creature, let us go to our Holy Quran and let's see how we looked at that. Chapter 1, I'll just read a couple of sentences here. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. And here it is. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. There it is. But Allah himself is not the body nor the soul. He's the spirit and a part of Allah. That's us, and we live forever. We're nowhere near finite. But the hybrids know that they are finite. That there's a time when they were not, and there's a time when they will be no more. That's okay. Because they live to serve the Moors. This is ADEP chamber stuff that we did not know, but we need to know it now so that we're not angry and focusing our anger in the wrong place. That energy can be used to build our nation. So when you saw Klan members burning crosses in the yard of people who thought they were black, it's because they stopped being the God that they are and started ascribing to being black. And the Klan was saying, no, you're not black. We're black. You're not black. You can't be black, and if you're black, you will go on the cross. That's denationalization. The cross collateralization of the vast estate. That's what it is. See, when we went thinking we were black, that meant that corpses could cross collateralize our vast estate and cover it and put a corporate covering over it and then try and make it look like they're in control of the whole actual estate when really they aren't. So they would burn a white cross in the yard of the Moors who said, I'm just going to be a citizen. I'm going to be black. They've always known who we are. There it is. There it is. Yes. Justice Amos, there it is. Hence their hostility towards us claiming to be them. Yes. Because if we claim to be black, then where are they supposed to go? Where are they supposed to fit in? So they had to subrogate as long as we thought we were black. Or else they would cease to exist and it would only be blacks, and then where would God be? And then that would change the whole order of the universe. When they say new world order, they're talking about the whole thing changes when the Moors know who we are. When we know who we are, everything gets back in its proper place. So let's now go a little further, because, see, we can also learn some things from them in the way that they did business, you know. Here they talk about portals. If you look right here, guard well the portal to this cavern. It's all spiritual, but not really. They are mimicking the rituals and the rites of the Moors. Yes, they're mimicking that. Now, let's look here at this part right here, where it says in their rituals, you know, their leader will say one thing and then they arise and say something else. Okay? Now, listen carefully, Moors. This is why all rise and stand is so powerful. They actually put it in their books that they have to arise and even to speak. They have to arise first and then speak. And it's all the way throughout this document. So when we say all rise and stand, and then we start speaking to the subjects, they're going to do as commanded. But we had to know we had the authority to raise them from the dead. Now look here. It says, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God. That's the Moors. Render unto the state the things which are the state. Okay, that's a Caesar thing, isn't it? Render, they didn't say Caesar for a reason. Because Caesar is really, and I'm putting it in the chat what it really is. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Render unto to the Caesar with the C that which is Caesar. Everything that belongs to the empresses, the matriarch, render it unto Caesar. That which is Caesar. But they wouldn't say that in here because they already know who the mother is. So they said, render unto the state that which is the state. And they said, the things which are the state. So even in their oath, they're still in service to the vast estate and to the Moors. And then it says here, love the brotherhood, honor the king, bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Moors, we can learn something about that whole bear ye one another's burdens piece. We have to assist one another, just like we have a blood covenant with one another because we got the same blood running through our veins. So we have to be there for one another too. Does that mean try and take someone's test for them? No. Don't try to do that. Let them stand sovereign. We all have to stand sovereign. That's why we deserve this type of acknowledgement and praise and worship. Because we stand sovereign on our own land. You think they don't know that? Yes, all of them took this oath. To the invisible empire, which now is not invisible anymore. And that's the only reason this stuff is coming to fruition. It's coming forward, and we can present it now. If the ADEPT chamber is not, it's open to everyone, so we can all see. And they knew that we would be able to look at the information and not bring a bunch of unnecessary energy and emotion to it that doesn't need to be there. With a clear understanding, we won't be mad at anybody. Period. All rise and stand. Remember that, Moors. Remember it and use it every chance you get. Whenever you're talking to any of them, that should be the first thing out of your mouth. All rise and stand. When you're going to accomplish the things that you set out to accomplish. They know what it means. They've been using it. So whenever they had to rise and say something too, this document is a court action. All of their rituals are court actions. All of them. So going into those fake venues, this is proof that it's a ritual because they use the same language, all rise, or a rise, a rise. Same thing. So now let's look a little further, because we know that we are the emperors and empresses. We know that. Look here on this page right here. The leader, whenever you see EC, that means that that's their leader speaking to them, the one who's leading the ceremony. And it says this, it says, the crowning glory of a clansman is to serve, non silva sedantar. All will say, not for self, but for others. So it's not for them, it's for the Moors. It says, let us be faithful in serving our God, our country, our emperor, our fellow clansmen. Who is the emperor? The sun. All of you. So they've been serving the whole time. This is their whole quote unquote church service to God, to their creator. Now, when we go into these, when we were just waking up and we would be going into the fake venues and stuff, we would be trying to convince them of who we are and all of that. They've always known. And then we start talking about nationality, and this is going to prove that they're actors. And they start acting like they don't know what nationality is, and they don't know about citizenship or any of that. Okay, don't they? When we go into those venues, don't they act like, oh, what nationality? What is that? What? We're all U.S. citizens. That's what they would say, And here we are just trying to convince them. Let's just take a look at what this ceremony is also about. Because, see, our prophet said nationality is the order of the day. This is why he said it. Watch this. Just watch. There it is. What does that say on the screen, y'all? It says, I'll read it for you, naturalization ceremony of the white knights of the Ku Klux Klan. But I didn't, did they know about nationality? Did they know we were Moors? Did they? Yes, they've always known. And they know that they need a nationality, which for them would be naturalization. Now tell me they didn't know when they sitting up having naturalization ceremonies while worshiping the Moors. These are rituals that they're doing waiting on the return of their Christ. So what did they do? They went into the adept chamber, or the secret chamber, let me call it that, a secret chamber. They go into the secret chamber and they have a naturalization ceremony while they worship the Moors. And it is a hypothecation of what we're doing, of the government services we talked about at the beginning of this call, where we talk about both nationality and citizenship services. Their Christ has returned in all of us. And that's why I said, look at that list of government services with what you can bring to it. When they see you, they see their Savior. That's why we speak in red. That's where the red letter Bible came from. See how it's all connected? Let's go. So we know that the Constitution, because, again, this document is connected to all the other documents that we wrote. It's connected to the treaty. It's connected to the Constitution. It's connected to the Holy Quran. It's also connected to our nobility. So let's go up a little further here. And let's look right here. So here it is, Nighthawk, which is one of them bowing. They have to bow first, and then they say, Your Excellency, sir. And again, they're just mimicking how they're practicing how they're going to serve the Moors. Sir, pursuant to my duty in seeking laudable adventure in the alien world, I found these men. And then he gives their names, which indicates that they're slaves to or servants to because they have names. It says, they, having read the imperial proclamation of our emperor and prompted by unselfish motives, desire a more noble life. I'm sorry, what life? Is that you desire, that you want so badly? Who is the nobility? It's in the Constitution that titles of nobility are not to be given. Why? Because we already have them in our bloodline and our birthright. And here it says, let's look a little further at this thing. In consequence, they have made the honorable decision to forsake the world of selfishness and fraternal alienation and immigrate to the delectable bounds of the invisible empire and become loyal citizens of same. That's it, Justice Yezreel. They gave it all away right there. They just left it all on the stage. That's it. Now, in our court actions, we tell them this court does not answer any questions. And then we ask questions because the one who's asking is as the king or is the superior. The one asking the questions is the superior in the conversation. The one answering the questions is the subordinate in court actions. In court actions. So now, we already know this is a court action because they keep rising and then they sit down. And then they rise again and then they sit down. They rise and they speak and then they sit back down. And then they bow and they, they do all of the ritualistic things that they would do in a Moorish court action. So let's see what else is going on here. Now, let's look right here. Their leader, it says, worthy aliens. Now, again, they've always known they're aliens. Alien. They know that they are alien. And they even, again, we've already talked about the definition of human. The definition of human means monster, doesn't it, more? So they call their leader a cyclops. A cyclops. Now you can go back and look at all those movies from the early times that have a cyclops and he's got a big eye in the middle of his forehead. Doesn't the cyclops have one eye in the middle of his forehead like at the top of the pyramid? I'm just saying. Now, again, all of our information has been hidden in plain sight. We just needed to look at it and know how to read and be awake when we see it, to know that we have no enemies on this landmass. In heaven or earth, we have no enemies. Because in order for someone to be an enemy, they actually have to be a formidable foe. And there is no such madness exists. There's no foe that can actually be on equal footing with the Moors in terms of that. That's why we don't fight. That's why we're peace. Because we have no enemies. Our only foe, as opposed to the word enemy, our only foe is within us. That's the only formidable foe we have. Period. Because no one else, there's no, in order to be an enemy, you actually have to be able to defeat us at some point. We've never been defeated without our consent. That's another reason why we can't be mad. When we really know who we are and we know the truth of our whole truth, we won't be mad at anybody because we have to consent to be beat or whatever, and it's not even beat. It's consent to be, that's it. Justice Theodore, you put something in the chat. Akhenaten's ADEP lesson 707. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. But in the interim, let me stay on task here. That's good. That's really good. Let me get back to what I was. Just one second. Oh, that's good. That's good. We'll have to take a look at that when we get a moment, Justice Theodore. Because again, now that we know how to read, we know who's talking to who about what. Okay. So now let's look a little further here. It says, worthy aliens, His Excellency the Exalted Cyclops, being the direct representative of His Majesty our Emperor. So what they're saying here is their leader is pretending to be the emperor and chief guardian of the portal of the invisible empire. Now, let me say something about that portal and the invisible empire, because doesn't the Holy Quran talk about some being the guardians of the station as we go through these tests? There are some who guard the stations of man. That's in chapter 1-2 of the Holy Quran. It says, let's see, where is that at? And again, it's in chapter 1. You can take a look at it. Yes, it's chapter 1, where he talks about them guarding the stations of man. So, again, now know that the majority of those doing business as judges, corporate judges and all of that, they attend these meetings and these ceremonies and rituals. They attend these. So do you still think they don't know who you are when they're looking God right in the face? And then some gods, they see them, and the gods will have just signed a bond and, you know, did all types of, not being your whole godness. Okay? And we're not downing anybody who's done that. Because, again, we're all in the learning phases. Just imagine what they see, and I'll just change that and put it in the positive. When they see a Moor standing on their square and not giving them an inch, not even 1 inch in those fake courts. Can you imagine what they're thinking? Some of them have even gotten up and left the bench and don't come back. Because they're like, God is here and I cannot behold the face of my Creator right now. Keep that in mind. So now, these questions that they ask one another. It says here, the clocard with his assistants, the clalist and clud. Okay, the clalist is another word for bailiff. And clud, that's how you know this is a court action. Retires to the outer den and will propound to the candidates in waiting the following required qualifying interrogatories, which means questions. And it says each of the following questions must be answered by a loud and emphatic yes. I want you to see question number 2. Are you a native-born white? And there's a reason why some of this document is in capitis diminutio minima, and then these kind of questions are in capitis diminutio maxima. It's because they're giving the words different meanings. Okay? Are you a native-born white Gentile American citizen? Now, again, this is it's supposed to be a naturalization piece here. You mean to tell me if they're Gentiles, then who are the chosen people? Where are the chosen people at? Who is that? If those are Gentiles, then who are the chosen people? Where are they? We know the answer to that. They just want to know if we know. And then remember, because our teachers have taught us that we gave them Christianity. And the ones who do these rituals right here with sincerity, they cleave heavily and cling and hold on to Christianity in its proper form, and not the commercial Christianity in capital letters that we see with the mega preachers and all of this kind of stuff and fiat flying everywhere. Okay? So these Klan members who do these types of rituals with sincerity towards the Moors, because the Klan's been hypothecated too by some commercial ones that want to keep the quote unquote blacks hating them because they want hate energy flying around on the land. So again, we gave them Christianity And we said this is how you will worship your Creator. As long as you here on the land, that Christianity is the medium that you will use to serve. And then some corporate hypothecators came and said, hey, we can enhance the Federal Reserve Act and put a bunch of debt on the land to hypothecate the vast estate. So we're not, that's what they said. That's what the corporate said. So we're not mad at anybody. We're not even mad at the corporates. Why? Because all we had to do was lean them and put them in subject status, and they get right back in underneath that Christian banner and we put them back in service to us. That's why we're doing all that we're doing. Okay? So if you look at some of these questions, they're talking about the United States of America and all of that. And they even, and again, like we were saying earlier, this document is in alignment with the treaty, the Constitution. It's even in alignment with the Declaration of Independence. Because in these rituals, they pledge their honor, their fortunes, and their lives, again, in these rituals. Okay? So if you look in this document, they talk about taking an oath to defend, preserve, and protect. And then here, do you believe in and will you, look at number 8, do you believe in and will you faithfully strive for the eternal maintenance of white supremacy? Again, this is where the mix-up came in at. Yes, Justice Amos, that's the point. That's the point. Justice Amos put in the chat, basically they've expatriated from the United States Corporation Company. Absolutely, yes. That's why they can get away with things and the corporation can't do nothing with them because they were outside of it. Like we are now, but not like we are. We supersede anything that's ever been done. Okay? And again, they have all of the qualifications, so to speak, that will keep them outside of the United States Corporation Company when it comes to having their own form of exchange, which is called the collect token, and I'll show you that in just a minute. It's in the document. And when they have their own language that they use. And all they did was change just a couple of words in their language, and it was suitable enough to keep them outside of the system that's been throwing Moors in jail under black names and capital letters, black ink and capital letters. But again, even in their systems, they couldn't do anything in red. They had to stay with the black letters and the black ink and capital letters, so they just changed the spelling and stopped using the fiat. And that kept them far enough outside of it to accomplish what they needed to accomplish. And again, I'm not defending the Klan and I'm not singing their praises. I'm saying Moors, they're in service to you. That's what the purpose of this is. They're in service to the Moors. And this is also so that we better manage our energies as we move forward. Now, look at question number 9, because see, whenever you're looking at any document and it has things numbered, always look at number 3, number 6, and number 9 of anything, and number 11, number 13. Always look carefully at those because they're going to make reference to something we did, something we gave them. Number 9 says, will you faithfully obey our Constitution and laws and conform willingly to all our usages, requirements, and regulations? Now, some might say, well, they could be talking about the Klan's constitution because the Klan has their own constitution within their organization. So we need to clarify, which constitution are they talking about? Well, they clarify it in this book, and we'll get to that just shortly. So let's move forth here on to page 23. So we can clarify. This is their oath that they take. Okay. Let me make sure that we can see the oath that they take. Every now and then, I'll just check with you to make sure you can see what's on the screen, because sometimes it will pop off of the screen and go to something else occasionally. But it's learning to stay on one page. Okay, good, thank you. So let's look at their oath. They talk about consciously, willingly, soberly standing in the presence of Almighty God, blah, blah, blah. Now, do they hereby pledge and swear and dedicate their mind, their heart, and their body to the holy cause of preserving Christian civilization, the dignity and integrity of the Holy Writ, and the Constitution of the United States of America as originally written? Who wrote the original one? I'm just asking. So they clarified there which one they're talking about. They're not talking about corpses, anything. They're talking about the Moors. They could have just left it at Constitution, but no, they need to clarify. As originally written. That means that they know that there's a hypothecation out there. As originally written, right there. And they know, they call them the greatest safeguards of justice and true liberty ever written. And then they start talking about their own constitution within their order. Okay. And then this is, you can read the rest of their oath as you look for. And I put the link again to this document in the chat. It is a clear distinction. Yes, it is. Let's take a look a little bit further here. Now, I want to point something out because this is a little bit subtle. It's subtle, but we can read. I swear that I will cleave, this is what they're saying, that they will cleave to their brethren in this order, and then they put a line, a couple of lines here, and they say, and their families, and then they put a line there, and they say, above. And then they put a really long line there. And then they put all others in a line, and will defend and protect them, and then another line, against all of our enemies, and then a line, both domestic and foreign. This above right here is being qualified. Okay, they're putting qualifications on it for a reason. They're putting qualifications on that. As above, so below, Islam. And let's hear the last sentence. They say that they do hereby bind themselves. Now, isn't that in our court action language? We always say to them, do you understand that you are hereby bound by the Constitution for the United States, 1789 and 1791? And here, in their oath, they're binding themselves to it. So when they say the same thing that we're saying, and we say the same thing that they're saying, then they know that they've seen their God, their Creator. Do you understand that you are hereby bound by? And here they are binding themselves to it, the original Constitution. And they say they hereby bind themselves to this oath unto their grave. Need I say more? Now, we know that in this document, they've been standing, arising, and then they'll sit, and then they'll arise again and speak, and then they sit again. Again, this is a court action. So now, let's see where they end this court action and how they end it. Okay. Right here, this says EC, and this is what this guy is saying before they drink this quote-unquote dedication fluid. That's what they call it, a dedication fluid. But this guy, their leader, will say, faithful Clothard, you and your assistants have performed your duty well, and now you may rest. Stand ready should some other duty arise. Well, that some other duty is when the Moors look at them and say, all rise and stand. This guy puts them back at rest, as in rest in peace. The dead in the dead corporate status. He puts them back in the dead corporate status. And then he says, be ready so that when it's time to rise, you can rise. Be ready. And then he says here, the dedication, sirs, have each of you assumed without mental reservation your oath of allegiance to the invisible empire. And again, Morris, who's the invisible empire? And they are servants and subjects in that empire. And they stand ready to arise when we say all rise and stand. And that's why that was so powerful and key and important in our court actions from the beginning. Very important. So you can take some time and continue looking through this to see how they pray to the Moors and how they, what they do, their rituals and things like that. Here on page 26, they talk about having orders. I have your orders. He's telling the new inductees that he has some orders for them. Well, their orders are going to be serve the Moors, and then when the Moors speak, you come from the dead, you rise from the dead, and then you do as commanded. Period. Okay. And then I want to show you, this is, look right here. Clanton, right here where it says Clanton, a territory within a province or the jurisdiction of a KLORAN. See, again, this is court action stuff that they're doing. We did not know that everything is a court action. Everything. Okay? Everything is a court action. And that's why what we do is court action. And when we speak, there's the link to the document again in the chat, Noble Longo. That's why when we speak and we use court actions, we can't be stopped. We cannot be stopped. And every time we speak, that should be the order of the day. Court actions. Okay? They even have here what they call a Congress and a legislature, a treasurer, a district judge, an investigative province officer, etc. So they have a government structure, quote unquote, and I say government meaning corporate government structure, because again, there's even with what they're doing, there is still no government but the Moors. They have a structure here. We gave them this structure. Okay, we gave it to them. Executive, legislative, and judicial. Okay. And here they talk about giants, the Grand Giant's office. Okay. And we already know where all of that comes from. If you know anything about the Moors and the previous Moors, and there were Moors who were giant, taller, much taller, and still are some Moors who are taller. So again, everything that they've done, nothing new under the sun. They took it straight from the Moors. And with that being said, take the time to look at the document if you choose. We'll be introducing more as we go, along, things that have been hidden from us that they put a lot of spookism around. They put a lot of spookism and a lot of war energy when in reality there's nothing on this earth or in heaven that was not created for our good and to help us and to assist us along this navigation of our vast estate that we're doing. Are there any questions or comments or anything about anything that we've talked about? Again, as we move into our government services, even all of this information is going to be important because those all rise and stand, they're back in service to the Moors because we know we're not black. We're not trying to be them, we're being ourselves. Any questions, comments, wisdom, etc.?
Islam.
Islam.
I have a question in reference to government before the Reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
In reference to the Moors, were there a president, or were there just a governing body, meaning a group like Congress that would delegate everything that happened around the land?
So depending on where you are in the timeline, the answer to that question is both. It depends on where we were in the timeline because, again, we experienced or we consented to what's known as a fall. And in that time period, at one point, we were saying we need a leader, we need a leader. So at one point on that timeline, there was a leader. Or, some call it a sultan, some call it a queen, or something of that nature, And then when we knew who we were, because see, you can tell where we were in the timeline by who was claiming to lead the nation. Whenever we did not have a leader, it was because we all knew we were sovereign, just like now. We don't have a leader. We don't, and no one represents the Moors. We all stand and present ourselves. So if you walk into a room full of Moors, back then, the time period that you're referring to where you didn't see any king's name or anything like that, and you ask who's in charge, everybody stood up and said, we're all in charge. So now, when you talk about presidents, because that's what your question was, were there presidents, whatever, we did not spell the word president like they spell it. They got that word from us. Okay, they did get the word from us. But we use that word as precedent. Precedent. Not president, precedent. A precedent is those who precede anyone who's speaking or anyone who's standing there. So when we say we're the precedent, that's the truth. We're the first. We're the primogenitors of all others. So some would look back in history and take that and say, oh, Noble Jonathan said that he was the precedent at that time, so he must have been the president. Noble John Hanson must have been the president. So he was the precedent to the corporation. He was the precedent. So we did have presidents that were Moors previously, okay? But we had that throughout history anyway, and a precedent they did not claim to lead the nation either. They never claimed to lead the nation. Just like the hybrid, the one doing business as president in that corporate structure does not lead the nation. We all know that. That's a puppet. It's not. It's a puppet. It's someone. It's a talking head who is speaking, supposedly representing the people. Supposedly. So in time, yes, a figurehead. Justice Frank, thank you. That's a great word for it. So in further answering your question, the answer to the question is yes, we did have precedents or precedents, or what you could call precedents. That means someone who's doing something new and different and setting the standard and the tone. That's how we used that word. And whoever that was, we would all say, okay, John Hanson, I tell you what, John Hanson, here's what you do. This is what we want you to say because this is the will of the people. This is what we want you to say. This is what we want you to do. So when you go and you speak publicly, to make it so that all of us don't have to be there, you go ahead and tell them what we all are saying by our own sovereign will. So yes, we did have precedents or precedents before. But that wasn't always the structure either, because most of the time we were talking to each other, so all we had to do was say what we wanted to say. Directly to each other. But then when foreign occupation happened, that is when a representative, and it's not even a representative, or he would be called a reprecedent. But whenever someone, John Hanson or someone would present what the Moors were saying, that he would present it on behalf of all Moors. And he only spoke what the Moors said. He did not add anything to it or take anything away. So that's how we did things. But he would even be appointed by the matriarchs who said, this is what our clan is saying, this is what our nation is saying. Because, you know, there were the 5 nations in government. There were the 5 at first. And as we got larger and larger, and then the hybrid came, okay, then it became a situation where it's like, okay, then John Hanson, you can go and talk to them and tell them that we said this and this and this. Okay. Now, the Iroquois Confederacy, I'll say this and then we can conclude the call and everything. But I wanted to show you also, really quickly, because this is important also. Let me just take a look and see. I wanted to show you the Iroquois Confederacy, their document, which their document just stated that, see, we didn't need to keep having presidents or precedents, because after a while, those that we were speaking to who were not of us would no longer be a part of what we're doing. That's why we don't need a president now. The Moors don't need a president right now. We're all the president, all of us, because we can all speak for ourselves. We don't need anybody to represent us. But that was all part of the fall action there, where we started thinking we needed somebody to speak for us and all of this and that. We don't need that now. Are there any other questions or comments or wisdom that you want to share with us? Islam. Okay, we will bring it to a close here. Thank you for being here. We're going to be providing an update on the Moroccan American exchange in the coming days. We have just knocked that whole project. It's just gone up into the heavens because it's just doing so well. We're receiving packets in daily, and it's a beautiful thing. So we're going to provide you with where we are in terms of each of the companies and how much has been invested by the heirs in Moorish sovereign dollarium. And if there are any other Moors who want to invest in the company that we've inherited, then please email thegovernment@gmail.com. That's TheGovernmente. There is an E on the end of government. Thegovernment@gmail.com. With that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine.
Grand rising.
Islam.
Islam and Grand Rising.
Grand rising. Grand rising.
Peace, Moors. Grand Rising.
Grand rising.